Mario Kart, the racing game of champions, where the cute and savage collide in an epic battle of skill, which is only slightly impacted by luck. I have to imagine Twisted Wonderland would have a similar series in universe, but maybe they don't. And maybe, just maybe, Use decided to introduce all their friends to this franchise from their homeworld to provide a healthier conflict resolution outlet. So today we're matching every Twist boy to the Mario Kart character I think they'd main after being introduced to the game. This is a super silly opinion piece, and I am also going solely off of vibes, so there won't be too much story discussion, but there will still be some spoilers for Twist, so consider this your spoiler warning. Also, as an additional disclaimer, I've never played Mario Kart with anyone other than friends, so I am blissfully unaware of the character stereotypes. Therefore, we are really going off of vibes. Now then, Grim would be up first in the rotation since he rooms with you and therefore has the most time to practice racing. Since Grim is constantly droning on and on about being the coolest guy and the best mage there will ever be, I imagine he'd want to main Bowser. I mean, who could be cooler than the Koopa King himself? Plus, he also breathes fire like Grim and is a little bit, how would you say? Feel like the two of these kids just do not think things through at all. I mean, Bowser's been doing the same thing for ages while expecting different results, which is textbook insanity, and Grim is, well, Grim. So all things considered, they make a decent enough pair. Plus, Grim is absolutely the kind of player to focus more on sabotage than actually winning the race. As long as he can be ahead of Ace and Deuce, that's all that matters to our little dire beast, and I think Bowser is the perfect character for that playstyle, so he's who I'm pairing Grim up with. Naturally, both Ace and Deuce would be the next people introduced to this otherworldly game, so it's time to talk about Heartstable. Since Ace is alphabetically first, I'm going to start off talking about him and his main lady, Toadette. I don't know why, but Toadette to me feels like such a rage baiter. I have no evidence for this connotation, no constructive thoughts or reasonable assumptions. However, I also can't shake the feeling that this is the truth. Since Ace is also Heartstable's resident rage baiter, I think he'd love the idea of trouncing Grim by being this cute little mushroom lady, while Grim is the big, terrifying turtle. I can imagine him zipping by and egging on Grim to do some mischief, only for that mischief to affect Deuce instead. This would likely happen regardless of character choice, but I personally think it's funnier if it's Toadette, so that's who he's getting here. Deuce, on the other hand, needs someone suitably delinquent yet not quite evil to match his personal journey, so I think Bowser Jr. would be a good pick for him. I think he could also play this off as him and Grim being on the same team against Ace, working together to leave the Heart Card Soldier in their dust. Bowser Jr. seems like a Lancer-esque character, a youngster who doesn't really know the moral weight of their actions but is going to do them anyway because outside influences have told them that it's fine, who may or may not decide to change a bit once they come to realize the people they love are being affected by such actions. Deuce is rather similar given his quest to become an honor student and redeem himself from his middle school delinquent days. However, he also slips up time and time again, returning to that confrontational version. Sometimes this is great for taking care of business, and other times it is comical. But I do think it's a quality that resonates with Bowser Jr. in my mind at least, so that's who I can see him choosing to main. Riddle, our rose-red tyrant, needs someone regal to represent him in these races, and I can think of no one better suited for that than Princess Peach. She's the sole regent of the Mushroom Kingdom, a queen who manages her people well, and oftentimes is portrayed as a level-headed individual. Riddle is the sole regent of Heartstable, a stand-in for the Queen of Hearts, and although he's not exactly level-headed, at least not all the time, he is fair and tries to rule justly, so I think that quality can still apply to him. Riddle's leadership qualities are very well defined, and our time spent with him shows this quite clearly. We see him tutoring students, he helps us maintain order during the Savannah Claw arc, he cares deeply about those he's in charge of, all qualities that I think Peach shares. She may not help out with Savannah Claw, but she is generally aware and willing to step up whenever necessary to ensure her people are safe and her country well maintained. Princess Peach's design can also be tangentially related to Heartstable since pink is a tint of red, and the little poofy skirt elements are kinda similar to Riddle's if you squint, so they got that going for them too. Trey, on the other hand, being the most normal and unassuming person on the planet, is going to pick Luigi. To me, Trey very much seems like the default guy because it's the least likely option to cause conflict. Go after Bowser and he has to fight with Grim. Try to take Peach and Riddle will be upset. But Mario? Easy pickings. Except, I think Trey would be drawn to the green color palette of Luigi a little more, and honestly, given that Luigi is the number 2 of the brothers, the supposedly lesser background hero, he matches Trey's whole shtick well. I, for one, believe in Luigi's supremacy, but he is also just a dude, and there are far more colorful characters on the cast that would likely appeal better to the Twist boys, making this a safe, uncontroversial pick for Trey. Trey, as we have discussed so many times on this channel, is the peacemaker, the mediator, the please do not perceive me, I would like to fade into the wallpaper kind of guy. He wants to reduce as much tension and conflict as possible, continually proclaiming that he is normal, just a dude, and given how Luigi was first used in the franchise, this pairing is perfect to me. Last up is KK, who I think would absolutely be a Daisy main. The two have similar color palettes, both are decently peppy on the outside, and both are ruthless when it comes to competitions. Where Peach is regal and more elegant, Daisy is a little bit more excited and energetic, which is a very Cater thing. He's bubbly, gossipy, likes to present himself as this cheerful, happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and oftentimes he comes across as having a lot of energy in our interactions with him. It's really only once you pull back the curtain and examine him more closely that Cater's complexity shows. But I think in an instance like this, he would be drawn to Daisy for her fun attitude and charm. I also think it would be nice from a meta perspective to give Cater, the one who dreamed of being a house warden, the other main princess from the game series to contrast with Riddle. I don't think either Cater nor Daisy want to take over Riddle or Peach's position, not at all. I just think that it's a fun little footnote. Moving into Savannah Claw, we're going to start with Leona, who I think would find Dry Bones to be an interesting main. This character is a little edgy, a little sad, but also very scary and intimidating under the right circumstances, just like our moody lion. Leona's special magic, King's Roar, allows him to create and control large amounts of sand by dehydrating things around him, and this immediately conjured up the images of Dry Bones in my head. This spell is not the end-all be-all of Leona, but it is a big part of him, one that leads to large parts of his trauma, and it is something that he can use to assert his power and dominance. Dry Bones are annoying enemies that keep coming back to chase after you, being very persistent and sometimes annoying little buggers. However, persistence is the name of the game in Savannah Claw. It is the spirit that they are meant to represent, the same spirit that the King of Beasts allegedly had, and the ideal that Leona presumably embodies as House Warden of the dorm. Therefore, I can think of no better character for Leona to main in this lovely little game. Ruggie is up next, our scrappy Johnny on the spot, who I can see playing as Monty Mole more often than not. These two have the same energy to me, and that's kind of the only reason that they're getting matched up. Ruggie is our part-time hustler, doing whatever he can, whenever he can, to get as much cash as he can. If it turned out he needed to dig some holes to do so, he would. Monty Mole feels very similar to me, a hard-working little fellow that does honest work for honest pay, and if he has to dig up a couple of holes for it, he's more than happy to do so. They both also have a certain kind of underdog energy as well, which is delightful. After all, who's going to bet their chips on Monty Mole when you've got hard hitters like Mario and Bowser around? Yet, with a bit of elbow grease, effort, and luck, he too can reach first place and take home the cup. Ruggie's whole shtick is turning the world upside down, giving the little guys credit where it's due, a theme shared with a lot of Savannah Claw, so as far as vibes go, these two are a wonderful pair. Last up is Jack, who strikes me as a Donkey Kong kind of guy. They're both strong and have muscles for days, plus from what I know, Donkey Kong is also a moral-leaning kind of guy. Jack is very set in his ways and sticks to his principles, an honorable wolf, if you will. He tries his hardest to overcome any obstacles in his path while improving his own abilities along the way. Due to this, Jack tends to go about things on his own unless someone proves their worth or becomes important to him. Then he looks out and protects them, albeit begrudgingly. Donkey Kong is a little bit more carefree and a lot less tsundere, but he is a protector and leader nonetheless. So there are elements of him that I think relate to these pieces of Jack's character. And they're both fluffy. How fun. When it comes to Octagonal and Azul, I don't really know who he would choose because I don't know if he'd be more of a min-max type person or not. Regardless, I think Pauline would be a solid choice because with a little help from some color filters, she's basically Vanessa, aka Human Ursula, and I think that's more than enough reason for this comparison. She's also a singer who uses one of these mic stands, and I think that's a very Azul thing too. If you know, you know. I did a little digging since I didn't know anything about this character prior to this video, and she also owns a club, or at least did at one point, and Azul owns a small club-esque restaurant. With this, they're basically the same person, so it makes sense to me that Azul would end up maining her here. Jade, to no one's surprise, is maining Toad. Toad is a mushroom, Jade loves mushrooms, and that's it. That's the end of my notes. I feel like no further explanation is needed. Floyd is maining the cow because it's such an out-of-pocket pick, and I think he'd find it hilarious that you can play as a cow. Just a cow, a regular old bovine. I also think Floyd would change up the characters that he uses quite frequently, also probably getting a kick out of the fishbone guy since they're just a skeleton, no hands. How do they drive their cart? No one knows. Floyd would like to find out though. Maybe he's in a Pianta mood today. Who is to say? However, I think whenever Floyd gets very serious, he returns to the cow and uses them exclusively when he's locking in. I don't really know why, but it is the vibe that I get for him, so it is what it is. When it comes to Scarabia and their Vice House Warden Jamil, I could think of no better character than Waluigi, partially because they are both evil icons, and partially because I think Kalim would main whatever character matches with Jamil, and since Luigi was taken, Waluigi it is. From what I understand, Waluigi is favored much more between the two in pop culture, which may not appeal to Jamil at first, seeing that he needs to be number 2 to Kalim. But technically speaking, Waluigi is second to Wario. For all intents and purposes, he's the evil Luigi, the evil second in command. So his pop culture significance doesn't really matter, especially in a world like Twist, where it wouldn't even be relevant. Outside of that, I don't really know why Jamil would choose Waluigi specifically, but perhaps he gets some enjoyment out of his evil laugh and gangly nature. He's goofy, charming, but dangerous when it comes down to it, which is a good descriptor for Jamil, no? He feigns ignorance, appears lesser, but underneath the facade there is a danger lurking that you never want to confront, on or off the course. Kalim, as mentioned, is going to main Wario to match with Jamil because why not? Wario also has a majorly yellow color palette, which I think matches Kalim's sunshine nature quite well. In my mind, Wario is the goofier of the two brothers, which also works for Kalim's constant optimism. My only true interactions with Wario were during WarioWare, when my friends and I would compete to see who was the best at all the little minigames. It was always such a fun time, and even though it was competitive, it also was kind of community building. Despite having simple motivations for picking this character to main, I think the depth of my personal experience, at least, really resonate well with Kalim's character. He tries to bring people together, always hosts parties and other community events, is a bundle of sunshine, and likely doesn't understand taxes, so I think this partnership works well for him. Also, apparently, Wario has an Oasis outfit in Worlds, and it looks very similar to the Sultan from whom Kalim is twisted, which may have heavily impacted this placement and forced Jamil to have Waluigi, but I will never confirm or deny the validity of this theory. Next up is Bomfiore and their house warden Vil Schoenheit, who I think would main a diva because he himself is a diva. Therefore, he's picking Rosalina. Princess Peach, Daisy, and even Pauline are cute, but Rosalina is elegance, grace, a star, and if Vil is going to represent himself in a video game, he's not settling for less. I imagine Vil has played a racing game or two in his day since he occasionally plays video games while waiting on set during filming, so I doubt he'd care as much for the skill implications of the character he picks and instead would go for appearances. Since Rosalina is the most demure of the royalty present within the game, I think he'd immediately be drawn to her and that would just be the end of it. Her ties to space and to stardom by proxy are a boon too, even if slightly abstracted. After all, why would you settle for being a princess of a kingdom when you can rule over the whole galaxy? Given Vil's own goals, I think these two align quite well, and Vil would probably have a great time trouncing on his competition using her visage. Rook Hunt, Plumfiore's very own Vice House Warden, who is a conch door main in my mind. I have no idea what this character is, where they came from, or what role they play in the expanded Mario universe. But what I do know is they have style. They are over the top. They've altered my brain chemistry ever since I discovered that they exist. Similarly, I don't know where Rook got his special huntsman powers, why he chooses to use them the way that he does, or how he infected my brain with his glory, but he's rattling around up there with Conkedor, so the two might as well be paired together here. I also think the ostrich can connect to Rook's past as not only a Savannah Claw student, but a resident of the Sunset Savannah. And Conkedor can connect to Rook through virtue of being purple and an icon. These two also just seem generically goofy, exuding oceanic amounts of charisma that overshadow questions about them like why does Rook have a photo wall behind his dorm room's wallpaper, and how does Conkedor drive the car or bike if they don't have wings on the handlebars? The world may never know, but I suppose we should let them keep their secrets. Last up is Epel, who is a simple country man, and for it, I think he'd end up picking Yoshi for his main. Yoshi is a simple little dinosaur with a bit of a twist. Most of the time, they're wholesome, charming, adorable, but once they enter the battle, you better look out. Yoshi will destroy you and smile while doing so, and Epel will do the same. The poison apple of the Felmir family looks for any and every opportunity to scuffle and look cool while doing so. Despite his outward appearance suggesting otherwise, he's got fire in his soul and a deep desire to crush as many bones as he can. Yoshi, to me, is very similar, an unassuming appearance masking a deep fire that will unleash chaos upon you at every turn should you cross them. Plus, Yoshi can be a little rage baity in certain instances, and Epel also teases folks on occasion, so I think they'd work together quite well on the track. Next up is Ignihide and their house warden, Idia, who is absolutely rolling with Shy Guy because these two are both shy guys, and I could think of no better pairing. Most of the time, I assume Idia min-maxes, and so I don't know who would be the best meta pick, but there is also a part of me that thinks, with the cart customization, any character could be meta if you gave them the right tools. I don't know, and I don't know where Shy Guy falls in the Mario Kart tier list, but I do think he's unassuming enough for Idia to not be drawing attention to himself, but gremlin enough to cause some real chaos out on the track. One of my friends almost exclusively plays Shy Guy, and they are one of the most annoying people to race against because they somehow cause all of the problems while avoiding all of the consequences. And that playstyle screams Idia to me. So this pick may be a little less objective, but I do think it thematically works regardless. Ortho, on the other hand, is playing as King Boo because ghosts are a very Ignihide thing. Ortho did kind of get possessed in Book 6, and the two of them love being little pranksters and rage baiters on the side. The Boos, on the whole, are silly little ghosts that love to jump scare you and play pranks. The king of those Boos is therefore the scariest and most prankster of the bunch. Ortho treads the line between life and death, being an android with sentience that doesn't have organic needs, yet functions very much like an organic being. This makes him theoretically immortal, but also not quite alive in the traditional sense, so having him main one of the supernatural critters just made sense to me. Given how quickly he can reach his little brother annoyance levels, this particular ghost seemed to fit the best. And our last storm is Diasomnia, where I think Malleus, if he could calm his power enough to play a round or two, would end up picking Mario solely because he's the default option and Malleus would have no idea how to pick anyone else. Over time, he would naturally learn how to pick the other characters and some of the other nuances of the game, but I like to think that he'd still stick with Mario because he's used to seeing him on the screen. It's much easier for Malleus to follow the game that way since it's how he learned it, and he may get a little confused about his placement if an NPC Mario is also running around the track. I also think it's a little funny that the guy who goes up against a dragon-esque creature in his day-to-day ends up being controlled by a dragon when he is gaming. But the two of them do well together regardless. Lilia Van Rouge, our war general who's also a father and who also makes everyone question their sexuality, has so many darn facets. I think he'd fit into a lot of different characters well. But Birdo has got to be the best pick in my mind. She's an icon. She gets things done. She doesn't care if you're confused about her origins or gender. She is here to wreck your day and win this cup, and I think Lilia also shares that sentiment. Birdo is also pink, and I think given Lilia's choice of highlight color, that would appeal to him as well. Compared to the rest of the cast, this pick feels a little out there, but I think it could make it shocking to some of the other folks, which would be a boon for Lilia. I can imagine a scenario where someone questions Lilia's choice, being like, Birdo, really? That's who you're playing? Only for Lilia to reply with a chuckle before he completely destroys any hope they had of winning. They have an immaculate energy about them, don't they? Silver, on the other hand, is making a rather basic pick with a Koopa Troopa. These two are protectors of their respective lords, and they have an adorably innocent appearance, and Silver is actually innocent in almost every single instance, and while Koopa Troopa can't claim the same, I do think more often than not they are innocent, just roaming around, patrolling, checking in on their neighbors, that sort of thing. They're also animal adjacent, and in my mind, they are quite polite as well, which works for Silver too. I can't imagine Silver being a chaotic player, though he would be focused. If you're struggling, he'd try to help you. If you single him out, then he's going to repay you in kind, but he's never going to get tilted over losing or rage at you for doing something silly. Sebek, though, would absolutely get tilted, especially if he lost to Silver, and I think whenever he isn't playing with Malleus, he demands to be Mario so that he can be just like his liege, but if Malleus is playing, then Sebek is relegated to baby Mario, since that's the next best thing. I really don't think there is anything about Baby Mario or any of the baby characters, honestly, that relates to the Twist cast in any way, since they're just the younger equivalents of the main cast. So there isn't a lot for me to compare to Sebek here. However, given how he's trying so desperately to like coffee just because Malleus does, keeps us ridiculously hydrated on streams by mentioning Malleus so many gosh darn times, and otherwise tries to mimic and impress his lord, the younger equivalent to Malleus's character makes the most sense, I think, in this context. And now that everyone has picked their mains, it's time for them to meet on the track to determine who is the best of Mario Kart at NRC. Who do you think would win the tournament? Do you think my picks make sense for each of these boys? Or do you have other ideas? Let me know all of that, and if you like this type of content and want more like it, with a comment down below. If comments aren't your thing, you could always like and subscribe instead. But before you go, I just have to remind you that you're amazing, and I hope you have a wonderful day.